Okay, so here goes my theoretical orientation. I put this off as long as I could because I was really dreading doing it, and then I thought, I know, I'll do some cutting and sticking because it makes me feel good. Apologies for the wobbly cam, I'll do my best to keep this still. But what I started from was a seesaw balancing of my professional and my personal orientation. And the advanced diploma is sitting underneath the seesaw because I think that it's starting to help me to balance all the different aspects of my experiences and orientation. And I'm really coming up with something that's feeling much more balanced and whole. So if we start with my professional orientation, my undergraduate physiotherapy degree, actually when I started thinking about the really important models and theories that we were taught during my physio training, it really came to me how much of this still really informs what I do. So patient-centered clinical method, which is all about seeing the person as a whole rather than as their illness or defining them by their illness. Goal attainment theory, which is working with people to see what's important for them, what really motivates them, and trying to make sure that you're always working within a framework of what their intention is. Appreciative inquiry is a really interesting one because I'd sort of forgotten about it, and then when I looked at it, and it's all about focusing on what's positive and what works, and asking questions that lead you to finding positive solutions rather than focusing on problems. And it's interesting because that really ties in with my sort of family of origin and what I'd remembered when we were doing that section of module 3. I then did an MBA, and interestingly, the only thing I've taken from the MBA in terms of theoretical orientation is around organisational configuration and the way in which organisations are shaped, and particularly in Mintzberg's configuration about professional bureaucracy, which is what I was working in within the NHS. The only other thing I took from the MBA is realising I really need to work in an environment where my values are reflected by where I'm working, and that really helped me to move away from where the MBA was sending me and into learning and development. So within learning and development, a lot of these will be really familiar to all of you. So Kolb's experiential learning cycle, Honey and Mumford learning styles, the reflective practitioner, Donald Schoen, which is about reflecting in and on action. Again, really important as professionals, but I also use it an awful lot in my practice now, helping people to really value the learning that they get from their particular experiences, and very adult approach. So it really appeals to me and appealed to me when I learned about it. I did a management development program, and that was really interesting in terms of looking at leadership and teams. So I've taken quite a bit from the Lencioni model, particularly, and for me the really important bit was around the willingness to have conflict within teams, and that was something that for me was quite new, and many of you will know that it's something that I find difficult. So to see it as a really essential part of how good teams work was really quite important for me when I learned about that. And then Daniel Goldman's 6 leadership styles, looking at myself as a leader and how I fit within that framework, but also realizing the importance of having a portfolio of styles rather than thinking that one way was the way. And again, something that's very personal learning for me with the way I tend to approach things from a very binary perspective. I've done a lot of work on quality improvement, working with the Model for Improvement, Breakthrough Improvement Model, which really originates from the 50s, but the PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle is something we're really, really committed to, and I use a lot. And actually, it works well for me, thinking back now into my patient-centered and goal attainment theory, looking at coming together as groups to agree what it is that's important for us, what it is we want to achieve, how we'll know if we've got there, measurement, but also really working from a shared intention. So when I looked at the whole picture, it was really interesting how well it all ties together, and I can see how I got to where I am now in terms of my theoretical orientation, even though I'd forgotten quite a lot of the models, or I thought I had. I realised they were sitting behind a lot of what I do. Moving to the personal, because I think it really is important to me and it works very much in tandem with my professional orientation. Really interested in the Enneagram framework around personalities and MBTI, which a lot of you will be familiar with as well. I'm fascinated by difference and why we approach things in different ways, and I'm really keen to build that into my practice. Emotional intelligence, done a lot of work around that and the 5 pillars. And then a few years ago I read Transitions by William Bridges, and I found that model of sitting in the endings and sitting in the neutral zone really, really helpful for dealing with change, both personally and professionally. And then much more recently, I've just read and found really fascinating How to Resist by Matthew Bolton, which is about community mobilization and getting people active around issues that really, really matter to them. And that's really informed myself and the work that I'm doing within the union. I've put my Labour Party membership card up there because those values are really important and sit behind what I do, an awful lot of what I do. When I look at the whole picture, and I'm sort of looking at this model for me of balanced enablement, the advanced diploma is really sitting there at the heart now of who I am. And actually I'm finding that the learning that I've had in this program is really helping me to pull together what is feeling like a Mairead model that'll work for me, that draws on a lot of my past theoretical orientation, but that actually puts my own spin on it. And that's really exciting because it feels for me like I'm actually developing into a practitioner who's true to my values, but drawing on really strong evidence base. Sorry for the wobble. Over and out.